Before Israel ever drew a sword, they had already lost a battle. Not against an army, against God. The people stood on the plains of Moab, at a place called Shittim. The promised land was finally in sight. They had survived Egypt. They had survived the wilderness. 40 years of waiting were almost over. And here, on the very edge of everything God promised, they fell. The men of Israel went after the women of Moab and Midian. They ate at their tables. They bowed at their altars. And the Bible uses a chilling word. Israel yoked itself to the Baal of Peor. A plague swept through the camp. 24,000 died, not from enemy spears, but from their own hearts. This was the first warning. The greatest threat to Israel would never come from outside. It would come from inside, from compromise, and it would haunt them for 1,000 years. Open the book of Judges. You find the same sentence again and again. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. Open the 1 Kings. The same. Open the 2 Kings. The same words return like a wound that will not heal. So who was Baal? Where did he come from? Why could Israel never let him go? And why was God so angry? There is one more thing. Hidden at the center of this whole story is a single word. Hold on to it. By the end, that one word will change everything. Let's start with the name. Baal is not really a name. It is a title. In the old languages of the Levant, it means Lord. It means master. It even means husband. A man was the Baal of his house. A man was the Baal of his field and of his wife. Remember that. Master. Husband. Hold on to it. Over time, that title hardened into the name of one great god. His real name was Hadad, the storm god. But people called him Lord. They called him Baal. For centuries, we knew him only through the eyes of the Bible. Then the ground opened up. In the spring of 1928, a farmer was plowing a field on the coast of Syria. His plow struck a stone. Underneath lay an ancient tomb, and beyond it, a buried city, Ugarit. Archaeologists dug in. They found a library, thousands of clay tablets in one of the world's first alphabets. And on 6 of those tablets, a poem. The story of Baal, told in Baal's own world. We call it the Baal cycle. In that story, Baal rides the storm clouds. His voice is the thunder. His spear is the lightning. He is drawn as a charging bull, the picture of raw power. And one thing mattered above all the rest. Baal gave the ring. Understand the land, and you understand the pull. Canaan was not Egypt. Egypt had the Nile. Canaan had no great river. Canaan lived and died by the sky. No rain meant no grain. No grain meant no bread. No bread meant death. So the people looked up, and the priests gave them one answer. Baal opens the windows of heaven. Baal sends the rain. Baal makes the land bear fruit. The poem made it vivid. Baal has an enemy named Mot, the god of death and drought. Every year, Mot swallows Baal whole. Baal dies. The rain stops. The land cracks and burns. Then Baal rises again, and the rain returns. Do you see it? It is the story of the seasons. The dead summer. The living winter. The Canaanites watched their god die and come back every single year. And they believed their worship helped bring him back. That is the heart of it. Baal was the god of survival. Worship him, and you eat. Anger him, and you starve. It was not a strange religion. It was a practical one. It promised the one thing every farmer craved. Control. Control over the harvest. Control over tomorrow. Now, when the Bible says the Baals, in the plural, it means something real. There was not one Baal everywhere. There were many local Baals, the Baal of Peor in Moab, the Baal of Ekron, called Baal the Prince. Scribes later twisted that proud title into Baal-zebub, Lord of the Flies, as an insult. Centuries later, the name shrank again, into Beelzebul, a prince of demons. Many faces, one storm god. And here was the problem. Baal's homeland was Canaan, the very land God was giving to Israel. God had given a clear command. Drive out the nations. Tear down their altars. End the worship of Baal completely. But Israel did not. They left the altars standing. They made peace. They settled in among it. And there was a hidden trap in the very word. Baal only meant Lord. Early Israelites sometimes used that word loosely, even for the true Lord. One of their own judges, Gideon, carried a second name built from it. Jerubbaal. The line was blurry from the start, and a blurry line is easy to step across. So Israel did not completely reject the Lord. That is rarely how it happens. They kept the Lord, and they added Baal, just in case, a little insurance for the harvest. That is the danger. It almost never starts with rejection. It starts with addition. The book of Judges shows the result. It turns like a wheel. Israel serves the Lord and serves the Baals. Trouble comes. Israel cries out. God rescues them. And then it all begins again. Over and over, for generations. Step inside a temple of Baal, and the worship matched the theology. The logic was simple. If you wanted the land to be fertile, you acted out fertility. So the temples kept prostitutes, both men and women. Worshippers came and paid them. And in that act, they believed they were stirring Baal himself, arousing the storm god to embrace the land and pour down his rain. It was worship you could perform, worship you could buy, a god you could seduce for a price. This is what crept into Israel. Not all at once. A festival here, a shrine there, a small compromise that felt harmless. Until the people kept the Lord's name but treated him like Baal, a force to be handled and a power to be bargained with. They kept the name, but they lost the heart. The wheel finally reached the throne. King Ahab of the northern kingdom married a foreign princess, Jezebel, daughter of the king of Sidon. She came worshiping Baal, and she did not come to blend in. She came to convert a nation. Under Jezebel, Baal became the state religion. She fed 450 prophets of Baal at her own table. She hunted the prophets of the Lord and put them to the sword. True worship fled into caves. Israel was almost lost. Almost. On a mountain called Carmel, one prophet stood alone. Elijah gathered the whole nation. He gave them a choice. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. If Baal is God, follow him. The people said nothing. So Elijah set a test. 2 altars, 2 sacrifices, 1 rule. The God who answers with fire is the true God. Now catch what Elijah just did. Fire from the sky was Baal's signature. Lightning was his weapon. Elijah did not pick a test that favored the Lord. He picked the one test Baal should have won in his sleep. He stacked the deck for Baal, and he waited. The prophets of Baal called on their God all morning. They danced. They shouted. They cut themselves with knives until the blood ran, trying to force the rain god to answer. Nothing. No voice. No fire. No answer. Then Elijah soaked his altar with water. He prayed once, and fire fell from heaven and devoured everything. The storm god could not strike a single spark on his own mountain. The God of Israel sent the fire, and then he did the one thing Baal had always claimed to own. He sent the rain. This was the pattern of Elijah's whole life. A drought Baal could not break. A widow's oil that never ran dry. A dead boy raised to life. One by one, every power Baal boasted of, the Lord did. Which brings us back to the question, why was God so angry? Here, the Bible says something far bolder than you expect. It never really argues that Baal is weak. It argues that Baal is empty, a counterfeit. Watch what the writers do. They take Baal's grandest title, Rider of the Clouds, and they hand it to the Lord. They take the thunder, Canaan called Baal's voice, and they call it the voice of the Lord. Every gift the people credited to the storm god, the Bible quietly signs over to someone else. The rain, the harvest, the very clouds. The message is staggering. You were never really worshiping Baal. There was nothing there. The whole time, it was the Lord holding back the rain and sending it. Baal was a god. The Lord is God. So when Israel ran to Baal, it was not a small mistake. It was betrayal. And now, finally, that one word comes back. Baal means master. Baal means husband. For 1,000 years, Israel called the storm god my Baal, my master, my Lord. And here is the ache underneath all of it. God had bound himself to Israel like a husband to a wife. He even named his own heart with a startling word. Jealous. Not petty jealousy. The fierce, protective love of a husband who will not share his bride. So how does this 1,000-year war finally end? Not with fire. Not with a bigger storm. Through the prophet Hosea, God speaks to the wife who betrayed him. And he does not say, "Fear me." He says something almost unbearable in its tenderness. On that day, you will call me my husband, and no longer will you call me my master. In Hebrew, my husband is Ishi, and my master is Baali. There it is. The whole war was hidden in one word. Israel kept reaching for a master she could manage, a God she could pay, arouse, and control. And the living God says, I never wanted to be your Baal. I never wanted to be a master you manage. I want to be your husband. The God who could call fire down from heaven wins his people back the only way love ever wins anyone. Not by force, by asking for their hearts. So what do we take from this? The first battle is never the one you can see. Before the swords, before the armies, there is a battle for the heart, and it is almost always quiet. A stronger God did not destroy Israel. It was destroyed by a smaller one. A God that promised control. A God that asked for only a little compromise. A God they thought they could add without losing anything. That is the warning. The most dangerous idol is rarely the one you choose instead of God. It is the one you try to keep beside him. And Baal was only the first. Behind him stood others. Dagon, the god of the Philistines. Molech, who demanded the children. Asherah, the goddess at Baal's side. Each one made a promise. Each one asked for a piece of the heart. That is where our journey goes next, into the world of the gods of Canaan. The gods Israel was warned about, the gods they could not resist. To understand why Israel fell, we first have to understand what they fell for.